What is up, everyone? JD here. I hope you're all doing well today. Got a review for you. Let's get into it. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the Divo knives buzz. Let's find out what all the buzz is about. Dad jokes for days. I promise you won't do any more, or at least I won't try to. Let's go ahead and do some size comparisons right out the gate to give you an idea what you're looking at as far as the size of the knife and the profile on it. We're going to start with the Elementum 2 bug out, lining them up at the pivots. You can see the buzz is just a little bit bigger than the Elementum 2, and we're going to bring out the Civivi Praxis, and as you'll see here, it is definitely going to be a smaller knife than the Praxis. Let me move the Elementum 2 out of the way, and we'll bring out the Dimco AD 20.5, and as you can see, this is going to be identical in size to the AD 20.5, and I'm going to bring out my Spyderco Shaman. And as you can see, again, more on the medium sized of EDC and less on that larger size. So something to keep in mind if you have larger hands. Let me go ahead and bring out the ProTech Mordax with that BGM regrind looking good. A couple of really nice grinds on the table right now. And we'll go ahead and bring out the Benchmade Bug Out, which is going to be almost identical in size to that Divo buzz. So being that it's more on the medium size, I'm just going to do a comparison in profile against these smaller knives, or medium knives. I shouldn't really say small, they're not small. And let me switch hands here for you. I have that upside down. So with the buzz, it's going to be a little bit of a challenge because you have that flipper tab, top flipper tab, but you can see here that the buzz is a thicker knife than the bug out. It is going to be also thicker than the Dimco 80/20.5 because this is bug out thinness as well. And then it should be, even or maybe a skosh thinner. Those jade scales make it a little bit harder to tell than the Elementum 2 bug out. So you're dealing again with a medium knife that has some nice girth to it. So if you have a bug out or an 80/20.5, even if you have the bug out with the Flytanium scales, this one's going to be a little bit chunkier, not by much, but a little bit, and I like that. It feels more hand filling. Now, I did mention that they are thicker, but I do want to do one other comparison. You can see here that the contouring and everything, I think it's going to be a little bit more hand filling from the top to the bottom as well. Not just against the bug out, but also I think very comparable, maybe not quite as much right here where it has this belly, but very comparable in thickness, and obviously not right out here because you have a different type of fuller. But it's going to be comparable in height, but I think because it has more thickness, whereas this is thinner, so this thickness across the scale makes this nice, right? Even though it's thinner, whereas this one's a little bit more shallow, but because it does have that girth, I think that ends up feeling really nice in hand. Now with the factory wire pocket clip, you don't really have any type of hot spots because everything is rounded on the wire clip. And with the Lynch Northwest clip, it does feel very comfortable in hand because the Lynch clip puts everything back towards the end of the pocket clip, the fold over clip, so it doesn't really feel like you have a hot spot. For me, I just barely miss the blade's edge right there, but the good thing is because of how the design was rounded or Best Tech executed, either or both, it's not going to become an issue as you sharpen some life off of the knife. Now, I will say, I did originally install a different pocket clip in here from Lynch Northwest, and I was having an issue fighting to get it in, and what ended up happening was I pushed this part of the pocket clip in so it looked like it was dented in because it was such a tight fit. Long story short, I ended up really screwing that one up trying to get it to get back into shape, and I ended up just getting frustrated and tossing it and grabbing another one. And this one, for whatever reason, went in no issues whatsoever. So I reached out to Kevin over at Divo, and he did mention that he measured a bunch of these and the tolerances are not super tight, meaning that it varies a lot from one to the next. So I was surprised to learn that, but I guess because perhaps with the Spyderco knives, depending on the model, maybe there's some variances there because they are meant for the wire clip on a Spyderco. The other thing he shared with me was that the retention sometimes on certain knives aren't as good as it is on others. So if you have the knurl scales with the pattern on them, it is actually going to perform better because these are designed to work with the FRN or the G10 scales that are on a Spyderco, which are very grippy. So this is a little bit more forgiving and doesn't have as much of a contact patch as, say, something like, let's see here, something like, let's use the bug out clip. The factory bug out clip, as you can see, this is a sharp curve up and this is a gradual curve up, and because it has just a little bit more foot on that smooth scale, because these are smooth from the factory, they actually end up having just a little bit better retention in the pocket. So it's not going to fall out, but if you're running and jumping around with a little toddler, according to Kevin, it could fall out. So just wanted to mention that. Not a super big deal because I'm not really rolling around with a child on the ground, and I've never had it fall out in like the seat of my car or when I'm sitting on the sofa or anything like that. It stays in place just fine. But anyway, that's a little bit of a sidetrack. Lockup on mine came at 40%, I want to say. And the access to the lock bar is one of my minor nitpicks. It's a little tight for me. Again, that's coming from someone with very large hands, so it is a little snug for me to get in there. I think most people with medium to large hands are not going to have any issue. And it's tight. It's not awful to get into, but I would take just a little bit more knocking down right there, or maybe having some jimping and leaving a little bit more material on the scale, on the lock bar, similar to what you would see on like the Arius. So not that thick, but that little bit of jimping does help depending on how you're coming into the lock bar. Even over here, I'm kind of getting some texture on the fingernail or on the fingerprint for my thumb, and I'm able to get in there just fine. Now, I love the fact that this has all titanium hardware. As you can see, I've already taken advantage of that, and I decided to go with the high contrasting green against the dark black. I really like the way that looked. I started out with the bronze color, and while I did like that, this to me just looks a little bit more interesting, and I don't see this colorway on too many other knives, so I really do like that. I even saw the green that I think they're offering with the aftermarket packs, and it's more of a higher green. I don't know that I have anything here. Maybe something like this, so you can see a little bit of the difference. I think this is what their packs look like, kind of like what you're seeing there on that Demco 80-20.5 clip. Now let's get into, oh, before I finish, sorry, the jimping here, it works. I would like to have maybe 1 or 2 more jumps closer to the tip. Again, for me with the larger hands, I do run into a little bit of a space issue. It does work for me, but if I wanted to do the detailed work, because I do have the finger length, like the jimping is landing more back here, and I'm able to get a hold of it, but it does feel slick out here towards the tip. So I personally would have appreciated a little bit more. One thing that I did notice on my grind, I'm not quite sure what's going on with the tip. It looks like it's a little wonky from the factory. I'm not overly concerned though, because as I strop and sharpen, that'll probably clean up. But it does, and I don't know how hard it is to notice on the factory, but it does have something a little wonky here. But it feels sharp, so I'm not too concerned about it. And again, with production, anything could have happened. You know, it could just be mine. Action on here, since I was talking about lock bar access, I did go ahead, as soon as I got this, I threw skiffs in here, but I did go ahead and flip and close it a couple times, and the factory bearings from Bestech are really, really good. I feel like any knife that I encounter, Bestech build, whether it be the Relative from EMP EDC, almost any knife from Vero Engineering, and the Buzz here is no exception whatsoever. Really good action. I mean, it is super smooth, lockout, side to side, up and down. I know I took it apart to put the skiffs in there, but it was like that from the factory as well. Very, very well locked out. I love this blade shape, and Bestech absolutely continues to kill these grinds, and their edges from the factory are so good. They did a fantastic job. This is really, really thin, and I know normally I don't do that on this channel, but I thought I would go ahead and grab the calipers real quick and bring them out here just to see what I get for a measurement, because I've heard a lot of people saying this thing is really thin behind the edge. So let's go ahead and cut her on, make sure she's closed. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and do a quick measurement. I'm going to look under the camera real quick, and then I will bring it up to the camera and let you guys see what I am getting behind the edge. I'm a little high up. Hold on one second. It's really hard to get behind the edge when it's this thin. So I would say if I'm not flexing and I'm on the very tip, which I don't know what it's focusing on, I would say you're probably looking at 20 thousandths. I am squeezing it, so 23 thousandths behind the edge. That is really impressive. I do want to do one other comparison, because I am going to talk a little bit about some of the difference from what I see from Bestech over to Kubey. So let's go ahead and bring the mash out here. I am going to, whoops, fall off the edge. So 50 thousandths behind the edge versus 20 thousandths. And this is also a hollow grind. Now, we can do one other, because this is going to be an aftermarket regrind, but I think it'll help, right? Let's talk about what we're getting on the BGM regrind. Behind the, ooh, my bad, I slipped down the blade. Holy cow. So you're talking, even with the Mornax with the hollow grind, 40 thousandths. So hopefully that'll give you some perspective about how good these factory grinds are from the factory. I don't know. I only have one other Bestech. It'd be the Relative, and I have a feeling that we're probably going to end out. Oh, I didn't zero out. Let's cut that off. So I just wanted to show you just how thin the Bestech is coming in, even if my calipers are a little bit off from what you may be getting with your measurements. I just wanted you to see it is thinner than the regrind that I got from BGN, which is super thin and slicey. It is actually thinner than the one that came from Kubey for the version 1 mash on this Bestech. So really impressive edge. Bestech just did a killer job with it. Slicing performance good, action good, talked about ergos, we did all of our size comparisons, so I think we're pretty much through the review. Now I did want to talk about some of the differences about, because I love the Smash. Now the factory edge looks really nice and performs really well on this, but again, you're getting an even thinner edge on the Buzz, which is crazy impressive. I do like the lock bar access on the Mash a little bit better. It is easier to get to in every method that you could disengage this knife. Even if you wanted to European and just lay your hand right here on the cutout and slide over, very easy to get to. And let me check this one, because when I got it back from Tri-State, it was a little loose in the pivot, so I took it apart, cleaned it, since I had to adjust the pivot anyway, and threw a little bit more thread locker on there. I'm guessing I did not put enough thread locker on there, but it is really smooth and guillotine, and the detent on here is good. Yeah, really good. How does it compare to the Buzz from Bestech? I would say that the Buzz, and I'm assuming this is because it has this top flipper, is just a skosh lighter. Like, it is just barely lighter. I feel like it has a heavier detent. At least on my version 1 mash, it has a light, like slightly lighter. If I were to grade them, I would say this one is probably a 8. I would say this one's probably a 7.5 out of 10. That's how close I think that it is. Now, from a size comparison, these are two different carries. You do have very similar handle lengths, but with this one here being a little bit more pointy and this one having less point to it, I feel it plays its advantage when it comes to that forward finger choil. So when you're looking at this knife, you actually ergonomically, it feels a little bit nicer, especially with that jimping being out towards the tip. And I don't know if version 2, they took the jimping all the way out, but even the jimping from Kubi could stand to be a little bit more aggressive. This jimping here feels more aggressive, and this one here feels more shallow. So I feel like you can, it works, but you slide over it more. With this, you definitely locked more in place. So just some differences between Kubi and Bestech on the build. And of course, Kubi's more, they do premium knives. I don't want to make it sound like they don't do premium knives, and they do a very good build quality, but they're more budget in, and Bestech's more high end. So the little attention to details between these two are really quite noticeable. Now you got a larger pivot on the Buzz, which I think the Mash would have benefited from a little bit of a larger pivot as well. But I think that's part of the reason why you have like this guillotine action going on the Mash version 1 versus with the Buzz. It needs just a little encouragement. Now I've had the Mash much longer. The Mash is probably more broken in. The Buzz is like a week old. So not really there. I also had the knurl scales. I wanted to mention that. That's one of the things that I love about Divo knives, is they work at bringing aftermarket options and things to do that you can do to customize your knife to the market, which is one thing that a lot of manufacturers don't do enough of, in my opinion. So I'm really happy about that. Now there is video up on my Instagram where these are installed, the knurl, which gives it that jimping or that pattern for a little bit of extra grip. But in this instance, for my personal preference, I actually like the way that the smooth looks like on this one. But I must admit, it was a really hard choice. I polled Instagram, and I polled a knife chat that I have on Instagram, and it was a mixed reaction from everybody. And these are really, really well done. The fitment on here and everything was really easy to do. I will publish the video where I did install these. It does have this here, because it has this steel liner. The pocket clip, if you're a righty, goes into that steel liner. They have a steel insert that they put on the back here for that pocket clip, that filler screw to go into, to prevent it from stripping any titanium, which is a very smart decision, because I feel like the version 1 stout, everything was going into titanium. And if you over tighten or anything like that, or if it's just a little bit of a snug fit, like with those Lynch clips, you could run into an issue where you would potentially strip out, which is another good thing, that for the money, you're getting extra hardware. They're working with different vendors. They are always improving their product. Not to say that the product is bad, because I love my version 1 Mash. I think it's a great knife. I think they did a great job. But some of the stuff that I understand that they did is they had them work a little bit harder at deepening the hollow grind on the Mash, which is great, because this is still premium budget territory for me. Anything $75 to $150 is premium budget territory, where you're getting either a premium steel or premium hardware, or potentially both, depending on the manufacturer. So I think they adjusted the detent ball to give it a little bit more of a stout detent, but it did take away a little bit from it being guillotine. So it becomes more of a shake to close, like the Buzz and the Relative, which is another Bestech knife that I have. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just making a point. But it's really cool, everything that you get. You're getting someone that is constantly reaching out to see if they can either get private people that are owning their own business, small business, to make scales or slips or whatever for the products that they're producing, or they're working with the manufacturers to produce the patterned scales, or with Lynch Northwest, who does make wire pocket clips in there, so that they can give you options, lots of options, which I think is really, really awesome. And Bestech does really good heat treat on this. This one's 20 CV. I don't know if in future he's going to work with some LMAX or LC200N, or what it is that he has that he wants to do, or S90V. I think I've heard him talk about how he likes S90V. So it'll be exciting to see what future iterations have. I like that the knurl's on there, and I'd like to see him continue to do some pattern texturing, or whatever it is that he wants to do. I like the lines that you see on some of the other knives as well. I like the jigging that you see on some of the other knives as well. I think that's kind of cool. So I'd like to see that as well. But this is a great knife and an easy recommendation. Now for around $300, there are some alternative recommendations that I can make for you if, let's say, the buzz is not your cup of tea as far as style. So you can, for a little bit more money, I think they're coming in at $375 instead of $330. You can get the Relative. There's a couple things about the Relative that I do like. It's 7.8 inches, and yes, that extra little bit of length makes a difference for someone like me. But I have heard Lefty talk about how he loves this model. The jimping goes all the way out to the tip. I think that's something that I'd like to see them adapt, but if you have larger hands, that is going to be nice for the grip. I have a compound grind. Hollow grind, compound grind doesn't really matter to me, but that extra length is really nice for me because I can move back on the knife. You know, I can spread out on the knife. I have a lot of grip, but both of these are Best Tech built. And here's a great example of it breaking in. So this one here I've had for 3 months, and it is almost a guillotine. It'll drop all the way to the thumb, and then one shake, it'll go home. There's no extra shaking after that. Now, if you want something Wharncliffe and you're on a budget and you can't get a hold of a mash because they're not in stock, there is the XL Penguin Plus, which is a good alternative recommendation because it's going to give you that Wharncliffe style shaped blade. It'll give you plenty of handle length. It is just a hair longer on each end, so that will help if you do have the larger hands, and you can get that for under $200. So again, under, you know, if you're on a budget and you can't get a mash or you can't get one of the other models that they're releasing because it's sold out, the Penguin Plus is pretty available in stock. Now, if you don't want a Chinese knife, this is my last recommendation. It is going to definitely be the Quiet Carry 9. I love this comparison. I think they're really close in size. The landing pad for me is a little bit more neutral here, so I do have some room to move around, whereas on the Buzz, I am locked into that position, but that really doesn't bother me at all, to be honest with you, because it's comfortable. It's a very comfortable knife, but this one's a Taiwan-made knife as opposed to a Chinese-made knife, and they are very competitive, both coming in at $330. So I love the fact that you can get something made out of Taiwan, built extremely well, good action, good detent, very snappy, good weight, carries very nicely in hand. Again, one of my favorite releases this year is the 9, and again, the fact that it's out of Taiwan versus being a Chinese made knife is a little bit of a bonus if that is something that is important to you. But this knife is extremely well built, and it has already become my favorite model from Divo knives, and that's saying something because I love that mash, and that mash isn't going anywhere. It'll stay in the inventory as well. I love 14C28N. It's such a great steel. It's easy to strop, it's easy to sharpen, it's very easy to maintain, it's corrosive resistant. You know, it's not going to hold an edge as long as the 20CV, not even close, but it's such a great model. But easy to recommend this knife. I recommend if they are at dealers that you pick them up. I'm actually going to push this video to the front of the line once I finish rendering it, so I can get it out there in hopes that anyone that may have missed or didn't realize this was out there does have an opportunity to pick one up, because you're not going to want to miss this one. This is a great knife. This is definitely one you can carry every day, even if it's your one and done. Such a solid knife. Great job, guys. I really like this model. You got a home run here on your hands. Thanks for tuning in. Shout out to everyone out there that likes, is subscribed, and regularly comments on my videos. I appreciate all the support. I love you guys. Hope you have a fantastic week. Until next time, peace.